Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is the Light of Torah, Purity of Truth Ministries. We're a little delayed today, had some technical difficulties once again, but Yah's on his phone and he has now allowed this broadcast to proceed forward. So this is a beautiful Shabbat. Every Shabbat is beautiful and wonderful, especially when we assemble, especially when Yah's people come together. And our creators in the heavenly realm, they are together. Shifts of the angelic realm, because we have our angels here, but in the throne where the Father and the Son are, in the city, they are celebrating, because it is this period of time that they have ordained from the beginning. It's called the seventh day. And so we are appreciative of that, and we are thankful. So let us offer up our hearts and minds in prayer as we start this particular teaching and service. Let's pray. Thank you, O Most High Father. Thank you, Father Yahuwah, because for the past 15 or 20 minutes, it's been difficult to start this broadcast, but we thank you for your intervention, and we thank you in your Son, because you're on your throne, and you overrule Hasatan, even though this is the system he designed. We are asking you now, Father, for your set-apart spirit, that you send the Ruach HaKodesh, and that you help us, Father, to have our minds focused towards you, towards your plan of salvation. Open up our minds, please, and our ears to hear and our eyes to see. Open up our hearts to believe. These are very important attributes from you. In order to be just like you, in order to hear your words and be inspired, we have to have your set-apart spirit. So we thank you now for that as we commit the service into your hands in the name of our Savior and soon-coming King, Yahusha. Hallelujah. All right, so we're going to start where we left off last Shabbat. This is going to be part 7. And as the title has been kind of a standard title, will you hearken to Yah's voices for your deliverance from a hardened heart? I repeat, will you hearken to Yah's voices for your deliverance from a hardened heart? And once again, this is part 7. So we're going to pick it up where we left off last Shabbat. And that is going, as we're going to cover Ezekiel chapter 12 right now. If you turn to Ezekiel 12, where we'll begin this teaching. Ezekiel 12, and we're going to begin in verse 1 to 3 to start with. The word of Jehovah also came to me, saying, so Ezekiel is saying this, Son of man, so this is the Most High that's speaking to him, you dwell in the midst of a rebellious house. So he's telling Ezekiel the prophet, in the midst of a rebellious house, which have eyes to see and see not, though. They have ears to hear physically, but they hear not, for they are a rebellious house. So notice how he's equating that, how he's linking it with the fact that they cannot see, they cannot hear because of their rebellion. That's what needs to be understood, a rebellious house. Therefore, verse 3, you son of man, prepare your stuff. He's telling Ezekiel, for removing, and remove by day in their sight. Notice it says by day, in their sight, so they can see, not at night. And you shall remove from your place to another place, in their sight, though, for them to witness this. It may be they will consider, though they be a rebellious house. I counted one time, I don't remember the count, how many times the word rebellion or rebellious is used, especially in the book of Ezekiel. Numerous times. So Yah is emphasizing that. So as we are reading this and going to the word remove, as we just read, when it says remove your stuff from removing, the word remove in the Hebrew is number 1540, 1540. The Hebrew word is galah. G-A-L-A-H. G-A-L-A-H. So it has a simple meaning. It means to leave, to depart. So this word remove that we're defining right now, it is to leave and to depart. So that's simple. It was for Israel, though, to consider. So when they would see Ezekiel taking this action that he was doing with this stuff, it says in that same verse, in verse 3, toward the end, it may be they will consider. Now, the word consider in the Hebrew is number 7,200. Now, we've covered that before, that number. And the Hebrew word is ra'ah, R-A apostrophe A-H, R-A apostrophe A-H, consider. And when it says consider, it means to see. So instead of saying consider, it could have been rendered as it may be they will see, though they be a rebellious house. So that's the Hebrew now, giving us a little bit better understanding. So Ezekiel is told then to cover, well, let's see. Let's continue in verse 4. Then shall you bring forth your stuff by day, in their sight, as stuff for removing, and you shall go forth at even in their sight, as they that go forth into captivity. So now he's given an indication to be prepared for captivity. For captivity. Verse 5, dig you through the wall, though, in their sight. So he's having to do all this stuff and carry out thereby, carry your stuff out, like you have to sneak out, so to speak. Now, verse 6, in their sight shall you bear upon your shoulders and carry it forth in the twilight, just before sunset, and you shall cover your face. Wow. You shall cover your face. Now, that word cover in the Hebrew, let's look up that word. It's number 3680. 3680, the word cover, now we're defining. And the Hebrew word is kasah. K-A-S-A-H. K-A-S-A-H. So when it says cover, the Hebrew means to hide. When it says cover your face, it means to hide, in other words, your face, to conceal it. Now, you know where this is leading, don't you? About the face, covering the face. I mean, that is so now in all the countries, in all the news that they have, it's constantly talking about covering, putting on a mask to cover one's face. So now Ezekiel's being told to do this to a rebellious house. Is that why that's happening today? To a rebellious nation, to a rebellious world that we live in amongst people? Yes, it is. And then we continue in verse 6, where it says, you shall cover your face that you see not the ground. Not even seeing the ground. For I have set you, Ezekiel, for a sign. So he always gives a warning. Our creators do that. They always give information through a prophet or others and teachers to let people know what is about to occur, what is about to happen. And it says, you shall not see the ground, for I have set you a sign to the house of Israel. In other words, to the nations, because Israel was already previously scattered over every nation on the face of the earth. So wherever Israel is, Yah is speaking to the whole world. The whole world, not just to Israel, but to the whole world. So he was their sign. And the word sign, you are familiar with this, I'm sure, but 4159. 4159 is Mophet, and Mophet is spelled M-O-P-H-E-T-H. M-O-P-H-E-T-H in the Hebrew, 4159, that he would be a sign. It means wonders as divine curses. Look at this meaning in Hebrew now. Wonders as divine, which means supernatural curses that Yah is allowing for. Divine curses. It also means miracles, because Yah performs miracles, and an omen, like a sign, an omen. So I put a little note here as I was looking at and studying this verse. It reminded me of what we saw already in Egypt. Remember, we're talking about this series about the 10 plagues and how the plagues have a purpose, a forerunner purpose when Yah needed to deliver his people out of Egypt. But those 10 plagues were also designed for a future prophecy. And we are witnessing it now in our face, so to speak. So I looked up, went back to hold your place here, the marker here in Ezekiel 12, and I went back to Exodus 4 when we started about the 10 plagues. So let's turn to Shemot, or Exodus 4, and look at this verse. I said, when he said about you can't see the ground, well, it reminded me of what we already read and studied starting in Exodus 4. So in Exodus 4 now, as I've turned there myself, we're looking at verse 21 to start with. Exodus 4:21. It says, and Yahweh said to Moshe, when you go to return into Egypt, Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders. There it is again, that same word in the Hebrew that we were just defining a moment ago. And in other words, Mofet, number 4159, it's the same Hebrew. For wonder, see that you do all those wonders, which are miracles, before Pharaoh, which represents Satan, which I have put in your hand, by your hand meaning the authority that I've given you to speak this and to perform this in front of the Pharaoh and Egypt. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. So there we go again. So not only just that verse, in verse 21 that we were just reading, but also there's a few more verses. Let's turn to Exodus 7. And now we'll look at verse 3. 7 verse 3. Once again, verse 3, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders. There's the wonders there, which wonders has the meaning of divine curses. Remember? Mofet, we were defining that. My wonders in the land of Egypt. So Egypt symbolizes actually the whole earth. So all the earth is going to experience this, as well as chapter 11, Exodus 11, where this word is also used again. Chapter 11 of Exodus. We're in Exodus chapter 11 now, and we're going to look at verse 9. Exodus 11, verse 9 says this, and Yahweh says to Moshe, Pharaoh shall not hearken to you. He's not going to listen. All right. That my wonders, though, see, the divine curses may be multiplied, increased in the land of Egypt, everywhere. May be multiplied. It's increased. It's to be increased. So now let's look at, let's see. Let's continue in Ezekiel. Ezekiel, go back there, please. All right, so then in verse 7, and I did so as I was commanded. As I said, I've been saying lately, to understand, God doesn't request and ask, he commands. I brought forth my stuff by day as stuff for captivity. And in the evening, I dig through the wall with mine hand. I brought forth in the twilight and I bore it upon my shoulder in their sight. So Yah wanted to make sure everybody could see this in their sight. So it's in their sight. Now hold the place there that we just read verse 7. And I want to go back to Exodus. Go back to Exodus. Remember when they couldn't see the ground, or he couldn't see the ground? So in Exodus 10, let's turn there. Exodus 10, and we're going to look at a certain verse here, and that would be verse 15. That was this plague of locusts, though. Verse 14 for context, and the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt. Verse 14. It's Exodus 10:14. And it says, and rested in all the coast of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them, there were no such locusts as they. Huge locusts, massive in number. Neither after them shall be such. This was a special miracle or a special curse that Yah was putting on Egypt. Now, verse 15. For they, that's the locusts, covered the face of the whole earth. Can you imagine that? If you were outside and looking, and you can't see the grass, you can't see the soil, you can't see the sand, you can't see anything. It says here, they covered so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb of the land and all the fruit of the trees, which the hail had left. That was the previous plague. So that whatever the hail had left from damage, the locusts consumed and ate up everything. And there remained not, look at the statement, not any green thing in the trees or in the herbs of the field through all the land of Egypt. So the land was darkened, completely covered. So when it says this special plague was a plague of locusts, as I have it, this is the similar language that Ezekiel was being told about the ground being, that he can't see the ground. So what happened with Ezekiel is comparable to what happened in Egypt, not being able to see the ground. So this was the plague of locusts that Yah had sent. So now back to Ezekiel 12. Ezekiel 12, as we're studying this chapter right now. So now verse 8. It says, and in the morning came the word of Yehovah to me, saying, Son of man, has not the house of Israel, the rebellious house, said to you, what are you doing? Of course they're going to ask questions when they see all this action played out by Ezekiel. What are you doing? Say to, verse 10, say you to them. This is the words from the Most High now. Thus says Yehovah Elohim. He's doing the speaking. This burden concerning the prince, though, in Jerusalem and all the house of Israel that are among them. So this had to do with their leaders. It says this prince. And then when it says the word burden, so I'm looking at that word now in the Hebrew, burden is number 4853. 4853. And I'm sure you're familiar with this word. The Hebrew word is massa. Massa. This happened to the ancient Israelites when they went into slavery, and they used that term massa every time from their taskmasters, the ones that possessed them and owned them, massa. And the word massa in the Hebrew means a sense of something that's burdensome. A sense of something that's burdensome, and it's as a hardship. So it's a sense of something that's burdensome as a hardship. Massa, 4853 in the Hebrew. So that's what they were. It says this burden concerning, it says the prince, it's due to their rebellion against Yah and his words. It's due to their rebellion against Yah and his words. So let's continue as we are reading this. It says in verse 11 now, say, I am, so when they're asking, what are you doing? Say, I am your sign. As the prophet representing Yah, I am your sign, like I have done, what you're seeing me do. You know, my face is covered. I can't even see the ground or whatever. So it shall be done to them, the whole house of Israel. They shall remove and go into captivity. So when he had Ezekiel play out and portray, it was a sign for them to see it and for them to get this warning. You are going now to have your faces covered and go into captivity. Isn't that interesting? Your face will be covered. Is that a sign right now that we are so close to everything ending? Everything ending. It's a different kind of captivity. Let's continue now. In verse 12, and the prince that is among them, that's the leader now, that is among them shall bear upon his shoulder in the twilight and shall go forth, that's the leader. They shall dig through the wall, just like they had Ezekiel dig through the wall. They shall dig through the wall to carry out thereby, meaning their stuff. Like Ezekiel to take his stuff, they are to do the exact same thing. But he shall cover his face. So it's very interesting that it says about the leader covering the face. Because for the first time in the past maybe few weeks or a couple of weeks, we see our president, in which he was telling the whole nation everybody had to cover their face. And he began to be criticized, you know, by the news media, everybody. And then finally, he had to cover his face. So now and they're counting it. Recently, he was, speaking someplace, and they said, well, this is the 5th time now that he's covered his face. All right. And Pence as well. Pence wasn't covering his face either before. So now you got the leader. Pay attention to that. So verse 12, and the prince that is among them shall bear upon his shoulder in the twilight and shall go from repeating it. They shall dig through the wall to carry it out thereby the stuff. He shall cover his face that he see not the ground with his eyes. With his eyes. There's an event coming that Yah is indicating that you're not going to even see the earth, the ground. You're not going to be able to see. The leaders are going to have to experience this. So it was due to their rebellion against Yah that these words were spoken through Ezekiel as Yah's prophet. So in verse 13 now, let's continue on. Verse 13, my net also will I spread upon him, a net, and he shall be taken in my snare. Look at this. And I will bring him to Babylon, to the land of the Chaldeans, yet shall he not see it. His face is going to continue to be covered, though he shall die there. So once the face begins as a sign to be covered, it was to remain. It was to remain. That condition was to remain. And what they're saying in America, and I keep hearing it daily on the news, they're demanding it. They're not asking it. Now they're saying you're going to have to wear the mask. There's other news media that is saying that they're going to use the military to force it. Force it. It's going to be mandatory. And if you are caught without the mask, you're going to be severely punished. Punished. So they're legislating to make it so that it's going to be mandatory. That every human being in this country, and they're doing it in some other nations as well, they're going to be forced to wear a mask. So therefore, it says verse 14, and I will scatter toward every wind, meaning in every direction, all that are about him to help him and all his bands, his groups, and I will draw out the sword after them. They're going to be scattered, and then the sword is going to pursue. Sword represents death, to be slain. Verse 15, and they shall know that I am Yahweh when I shall scatter them. They don't know him now. They didn't know him previous to this command by Yah through Ezekiel. But they're going to know that he is Yahweh because when he speaks, it's going to be fulfilled. When I scatter them among the nations, it says here, and disperse them into the countries. So I'm reading from 13 to 15 here, and I have here, therefore, Yah would scatter them among all the nations. That's where they're scattered. And leaving, now verse 16 I should read, but I will leave a few. Look at that statement. I will leave a few men of them from the sword and from the famine and from the pestilence. So there are some that will escape it, in other words. So the word few is mispar. Mispar is spelled, but C has an S sound, so it's M-I-C-P-A-R. M-I-C-P-A-R, mispar. It's number 4557 in the Hebrew. That's for the word few. 4557. It's interpreted as a small number counted. So it says few, a small number counted. Out of the total is the way it's defined. So a small number out of a massive total is the way that this is defined. And then it says that Yah himself says he would leave, as we're reading in that verse, a few men of them from the sword and from the famine and from the pestilence, and that he would leave. The word leave is 3498. 3498. And it's Yathar. Yathar is Y-A-T-H-A-R. So 3498, the word leave now that we're defining. And when it says I will leave a few, and this has the meaning of remaining over. So the word leave, remaining over, separation from the primary group. Let me repeat that. It means remain over or separation from the remaining from the primary group. Separation from the primary group. So this is reflected though in Ezekiel 6 verse 8. So hold your place here. Ezekiel 6 and verse 8. So this term about being left, separated from the group, from the primary group, so to speak. And it says in it, it's reflected in Ezekiel 6 verse 8. So let's look at this verse. He had previously told Ezekiel in verse 8, it says, yet will I leave a remnant. Yet will I leave a remnant. When it says leaving a few, it's the same Hebrew word 3498 that we were just defining in Ezekiel 12. Yet will I leave a remnant that you may have some that shall escape the sword. You see that? Among the nations. Some. Israel is scattered everywhere. But it says here, among the nations, when you shall be scattered through the countries. So here Yah is prophesying all of this. He foretold it, thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, back before Messiah came to the earth. So we're in 2020 right now. He foretold this for the last days, our time period. There's going to be a few, a small number, it says, that shall escape. I'm reading still from Ezekiel 6 verse 8. Shall escape the sword among the nations when you shall be scattered through the countries. So that's the sign. And the world is going to witness that. Because when Yah's bride is finally taken, removed from the earth, It's going to be reported everywhere that people will notice, and not right away, but where is this person? Where is this family? Where is such and such? We can't find them anywhere. It's going to be the sign. Can't find them anywhere. So now back to Ezekiel 12. As we're reading verse 16, and it reported here in verse 16 about escaping from the famine as well, besides the sword, and the pestilence. So look at verse now 17 and 18. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, that as repeated numerous times in the prophecy of Ezekiel about the word. Yah is emphasizing. He wanted people to understand this is not from a human being. It's the reason why he's over and over again, you'll see this statement. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came to me, saying, verse 18, Son of man, eat your bread, look at these terms now, with quaking, and drink your water with trembling and with carefulness. Oh, we got to look up these words. So we're going to look up now the word quaking. It's number 7494 in the Hebrew. Eating your bread with quaking, 7494. It's Ra'ash. Ra'ash is R-A with an apostrophe A-S-H. Ra'ash. R-A apostrophe A-S-H. So when it says with quaking, it says here in the meaning, with quaking under an earthquake. Isn't that interesting? With quaking under an earthquake. And by the way, I listened to one of the underground media sources, and they were reporting there's been tremendous increases of earthquakes in unusual places in America. And they referred to North Carolina, and they referred to other areas in the country, Utah, just different areas, as of this year, that people have said that in one area they hadn't seen any record over 100 years, over 100 years. So now they're taking note. Says there's increases in areas that you don't expect, So this meaning, when we get back to the 749 for Ra'ash, with quaking as under an earthquake, and then it says also in torment. In torment, you're eating your bread in torment. Think about that. And fear, it also says, and trembling. In fear. So look at what we're seeing on the news, the long lines of people that are going to locations because they're out of food, because they have not been working, because they lost their jobs, or the companies went under that they were working for, all of that. And some of these people are saying they've never had to go to food lines before, ever, in their house, in their family. And so they are in fear. And it says their children are not being able to eat all of that. That's the fulfillment of this prophecy for the last days. Okay, so let's continue when it says here, and drink your water also with trembling and with carefulness. Okay, so drinking your water with carefulness is 1674 in the Hebrew. Carefulness, 1674. And the God, Diagah, whatever, is D-E-A-G-A-H. Diagah, D-E-A-G-A-H in the Hebrew. So the word carefulness has the meaning now of anxiety. Anxiety. Also fear. Once again, here's fear taking part, and sorrow. So it's anxiety. And when you hear the people when they're talking about their situation, and they're talking about they're afraid, and they're talking about they're anxious or whatever, they use similar terms themselves because they don't know how, they get the food from the food bank, but that's only a small portion. That's not enough to sustain them, every day and every week, so to speak. So I'm asking the question of all of us. Are we realizing this is exactly what is happening right now in this country? Think. I'm repeating this. I'm asking this question of all of us. Are you realizing that this is exactly what is happening right now in this country, besides this country, all around the world? The food lines is going on all around the world. So now let's look at as we continue, verse 19. So say to the people of the land, Yah says, thus says Yehovah Elohim of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. It says, and of the land of Israel. He's emphasizing that. They shall eat their bread with carefulness. Same word that we already defined in verse 18, carefulness. They shall eat their bread. So he repeats it. They shall eat their bread with carefulness and drink their water, it says, with astonishment. And drink their water with astonishment. So I have here in my notes, Yah repeats the judgment, and then he uses the word astonishment. What is that? In the Hebrew, it's number 8078. 8078, this word astonishment. It's also 8074. And it's a long Hebrew word, but it's Shemamuan. Shemamuan is spelled, or Shemamuan, it's spelled Shimmamown. It's a long Hebrew word, Shamuan. Shimmamown. So it means in the Hebrew, horror. This word astonishment, horror. It means despair. It means a state, think about this, of shock. Don't you know that the people of America that have never experienced going to food lines, losing their jobs, losing their homes, whatever, they're in shock. They never expected it. They've seen, maybe witnessed other people going through things, of the poor in the land, the people that don't have much. They know about that. They know the knowledge about that. But for it to happen to them generates shock in their thinking. And I've even heard them use such language. A state of shock and trepidation. And it says in the Hebrew now, trepidation at what is happening, as to what is happening to them. So I have here, we see it now with long, massive food lines. They're in their vehicles sometimes for hours. Long, massive food lines at food centers. And also it's because of the lack of having a job. And the recent cutoff of their stimulus checks. I put this in the notes, a recent cutoff of their stimulus checks. And you should have heard the storms about that from people's statements. What are they going to do? They said they were just barely getting by with the 600. And now you're taking it away? I've seen people crying or in anger or in fear. Stimulus checks, and then also unemployment checks also have been cut off. So look at the fulfillment of what Yah put in his word here. He's foretold this centuries ago, not only for ancient Israel, but for modern day Israel that's scattered in every nation. So he foretold that. So now verse 20. Verse 20 says this. Well, let me see. I didn't finish verse 19 because I was defining the word astonishment. It says, so they shall drink their water with astonishment, that her land may be desolate from all that is therein, because what? Of the violence of all them that dwell in it. The violence. They're breaking Yah's Torah in their relationships with humanity everywhere. The violence that's within, he says. So let's continue in verse 20. It says here, and the cities, isn't the emphasis that we've been hearing? Not the suburbs so much, but the cities. Even the president has mentioned that. All the politicians speak of that, about the cities that people are living in and affected by all of this curse. So, in the cities that are inhabited shall be laid waste, it says, shall be laid waste. So, I have here the word waste in the Hebrew. Gotta understand. We're looking up a lot of words. Very important. Because you and I just read the scriptures in the English. And we read over whatever we're reading. And we try to figure it out in our own minds. We try to think it out as to what we're reading. And we have no idea what it really means. So the word waste is 2717. 2717. And the Hebrew word is charab. C-H-A-R-A-B. C-H-A-R-A-B. Charab. It means to desolate. The word waste now, to desolate, destroy is another meaning. And it says here, kill through drought. Isn't that interesting? Kill through drought. Well, I just heard on the weather even yesterday. And they're saying over the next 8 days, there's hardly any rain in the forecast like there's been. We're not getting the rain. And we are in a serious drought, even in our state of Connecticut. We're in a serious drought. But drought is throughout all the land right now. And if you do get the rain, it's in a prophecy as well, it's over in abundance. It has no use or no benefit to the crops. Oh, I got something I played from the Weather Channel. It may be about 12 minutes long. And I may show it later on my TV. I said, you know what? I saw it twice. Actually, they showed it 3 different times. I said, you know what? Maybe our group needs to see this. What they're saying, what the drought has done to the farmland. Okay, so I'm just relating that to you, the Weather Channel. And they repeat a lot, by the way. So they repeat a lot. So I got here. So they to destroy, this word waste now, it means to desolate, destroy, and kill through drought. So now let's continue on in verse 21. Here we go again. And the word of Jehovah came to me saying, I don't know how many times in the book of Ezekiel that phrase is used, because Yah is emphasizing this. And he wants anyone that will read and study or learn what these prophecies are, that these are not from a man. They're not from humanity. It's from our creators. And that's why he keeps repeating that. The word of Jehovah came to me saying, verse 22, Son of man, what is that proverb? Look at this statement now, that you have in the land of Israel, saying, what is the proverb then? Look at what this proverb is. The days are prolonged. Prolonged for the distant future, and every vision fails. So look how they're thinking. Look at the mindset of people. And I've heard it amongst us. When I was studying this, I've heard amongst us as an assembly. Okay. Oh, we got plenty of time. Oh, really? I don't believe that and haven't been believing that. That's why I prepare to be taken. That's my whole focus in my life, personally speaking. But it says here, so that it says, then Yah again asked, what is their proverb? And the word proverb in the Hebrew, 4912, the word proverb, this proverb, the Hebrew word is mashal. Mashal, we've studied that in times past, M-A-S-H-A-L, mashal, M-A-S-H-A-L, number 4912. It's defined this way, it's a parable as a prophetic utterance. Prophetic utterance. It's by word, though, this prophetic utterance by word, spoken in contempt. Think about that mindset. Spoken by the people now, but it's in contempt of Yah, in other words, that our days are prolonged The word prolong now in the Hebrew, days are prolonged. Number 748, prolong. 748 is arak, A-R-A-K, arak. It means to make long, to be drawn out, like in some distant future, drawn out. It has the meaning postpone. Think about when something is postponed. And you know, sports and different things like that, concerts or whatever, something happens and they have to postpone it. And there's been a lot of activities being postponed, isn't it? Today, right now. What's being postponed? Especially in the area of sports. You know, games and the leagues are postponing. College is doing the same thing. You know, talk about the Big Ten and all these college conferences. They've had to postpone the season for the fall of football, as an example. So you understand when something is postponed, it's not happening right now in the area of sports, and they're saying it's postponed for a future time. So it's this word that we're studying right now. Prolonged is to be postponed or lengthened. Lengthened. So I repeat, is to make long, drawn out, postpone, or lengthen. And they said, what is prolonged? What were we reading? And every vision, the word vision in the Hebrew is, looks like 2317. Yes, 2317. And the Hebrew word is chrazon. Chrazon is C-H-A-Z-O-W-N. C-H-A-Z-O-W-N. Number 2317 in the Hebrew. For the word vision now we're defining. It means a dream or a revelation. So every vision, that means every dream, because the prophets are given dreams. In fact, Ezekiel wrote in the previous chapters, that he said, while on occasion, he said, while I was upon my bed, a dream, a vision came like a dream. Isaiah did the same thing on occasion. Every vision upon, or every dream while he was on his bed. You know, sometimes the prophets reveal things like that. I know in my case, you've heard me say numerous times that I'm just waking up in the morning. I don't even have my faculties together. And all of a sudden, Yah will begin to speak to me and give me phrases or give me scriptures to start with and then add on. That's the way I don't have a vision where all of a sudden I see something like on a TV screen. I don't have that kind of vision. Some prophets did have that. So I'm not labeling myself as a prophet. I'm just saying my experience. Most of the time, I'm getting messages from Yah as I'm waking up in the morning. That's the way it happens. And sometimes I mistakenly not go down right away, the scripture, and then I try to think about it later. I say, oh man, I should have wrote that down right away. You know, and I had to be corrected about that, so to speak, because I lost out. Something important. But anyway, so it means a dream or a revelation. And then it says the word, every vision faileth. What's that word? Faileth in the Hebrew. Fails. Faileth is number 6 in the Hebrew concordance. The Hebrew word is abad. Abad is A-B-A-D. A-B-A-D, abad, or abad. It's number 6. So when they say it's faileth, every vision, it means in the Hebrew, perish. Ceased to exist. So they're denying what Yah has proclaimed as a vision through his prophet. They say it doesn't exist. It's not going to happen. Cease to exist. Or be lost. Or be lost. Now, in the concordance, it gave a reference. Hold your place in Ezekiel 12. It gave a reference to Proverbs 29:18. So hold your place, and we're going to turn to Proverbs 29. This is a famous verse in scripture that we've read numerous times in the past in studies. But Proverbs 29. Now, I'm looking at verse 18, but my eyes is also focused on verse 17 for context. For context, in verse 17, correct your son, it says, and he shall give you rest, which means peace in Hebrew, peace. So what is that saying to parents? If you don't correct, you're not going to have any peace. You know, you're going to be meddled with and all kinds of things, and you're not at peace. And so things are going on in your daily life. Yes, he shall give delight to your soul, the peace. You won't have any anxiety. You will have the peace, and therefore, things will work out in a better way, though. So now that's verse 17. But verse 18, where there is no vision, though, the people perish. There it is. No vision, the people perish. But he that keeps the Torah, look at this, joyful is he. I'm going to use the word happy because that's a pagan word. All right. Joyful or rejoicing is he. So I repeat, where there is no vision, the people perish. So Yah is saying here in Ezekiel, going back to Ezekiel 12, I'm giving you a vision. I've been giving you visions through my prophets, but you're rejecting them. You're putting them off at a future distant time. You're not taking heed to the warnings that I am giving to the people and to the leaders. So therefore, you're going to perish. You're going to die in your sins. So that's what we need to understand about that verse. And okay, let's continue. Verse 23 now. So tell them, after this mindset and this attitude, so now he tells Ezekiel, you tell them, therefore, thus says Yehovah Elohim, I will make this proverb to cease. Look what the Most High is saying. Oh yeah, you got this thinking and this mindset. You're putting it off. You're thinking it's for future generations. It's not going to happen now. It's just like the asteroid that they know is coming. And they know the time period that it's coming. But they're saying they're putting it off, that it's going to happen instead of now, it's going to happen maybe sometime from 2029 all the way to 2040 something. Prolonged in a distant future. We don't have to be so worried right now. That's not true. That's a lie. That's a lie. So that's just one of the things. And that's Revelation 8 about wormwood, this asteroid that's coming. Okay? And it's very massive. And one particular ministry that was making reference to that, how NASA's been lying, and they're hiding certain things, and they were actually referring to other things. Because there was one that came, a flyby, July 28th. And you see, I think it was on the 26th when they discovered it, and July 28th is when it went by the Earth. It was basically the size of a car or a truck. Okay, so that can do very little damage. But they didn't report it until July 26th that it's coming by July 28th. You understand? So they were reporting that. How our government and NASA and all of those agencies, they're hiding information. They're hiding information. It's their mindset. And then Yah is saying, in answer to that we're reading right now in verse 23, tell them, therefore, thus says Yehovah Elohim, he's speaking, I will make that proverb to cease. That mindset, that thinking is going to end. And let's see. All right, it's going to end. Let's continue. And they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel. No more. I'm going to put a stop to that, Yah say. But thou say to them, the days are at hand. It is now. Is that what he's telling us right now in this last days? When people still think it's supposed to be down in the future decade, a different decade down the road. You know, we hear that from Christian ministries, except the ones that believe in prophecy. The ones that really believe in prophecy don't speak that way. But most religious systems are putting it off into a distant future. And Yah said he's going to end that. At the time that they're thinking that is the time that he is going to end it. He says, say to them, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision, every one that he has spoken. You know, when he says that when he speaks, every word that he speaks, it shall not come back to him void, but my word shall stand. It says in Isaiah. Okay, so Yah answers, no more vain. Let's see. Okay, verse 24. Got to read that. Look at this verse now, verse 24. For there shall be no more any vain vision, nor flattering divination. Look what he puts here. So we think about the word flatter is to, you know, build up somebody's ego, flatter them. You know, we kind of interpret that from the English standpoint. Doesn't mean that. Okay, flattering is 2509 in the Hebrew. 2509 in the Hebrew. The word flattering now we're defining. Yah says no more of this. I think it's Shah or Kalak. Kalak is spelled C-H-A-L-A-Q. Q with the K sound. C-H-A-L-A-Q. Shalak. 2509. Flattering, we're defining. It means smooth talk. Yes, you know, the people love to get that smooth answer, that smooth talk, you know, to us. Of the tongue. That's how they use that tongue. Smooth, you know. And sometimes you all call me smooth. I don't like that. I don't like that when you call me smooth. You know, I'm not trying to be smooth at all. Nada, no smooth for me. Don't flatter yourself. We're having a little fun here for those of you online. All right. See, I put my foot in my own mouth by bringing out that subject, you see. All right. So, but it says flattering, divination, through divination. The word divination in the Hebrew, 4738. 4738, divination. It's Mikam. Mikam is M-I-Q with the K sound, C-A-M. Mikam, M-I-Q-C-A-M, 4738. This word divination. And it's defined this way in the concordance of discerning the future by or through pagan practice, pagan process. I repeat, discerning the future by a pagan process through false prophets. That's how they define, through false prophets. So now let's continue as we continue from verse 24. Let's continue with the rest of the verses here. For I am Yehovah, I will speak, and the word that I shall speak shall come to pass. Look what he says. I am Yehovah. You don't acknowledge me, but I'm telling you who I am. I'm the creator. I'm the master, so to speak. I will speak, and the word that I shall speak shall come to pass. He says it in a very positive way. It shall be no more prolonged. He repeats that. Just like he repeated it when they were saying in verse 22 that the days are prolonged and every vision fails. I'm repeating that. And then Yah says in verse 23, I will make this proverb to cease. They shall no more use it as a proverb, but say to them, the days are at hand. And then, of course, verse 24 we just covered. So he says, it shall be no more prolonged. Same Hebrew word. Let me see what I have here in my notes. I don't want to forget something here. Okay. and it also has the meaning delayed, because I got this in my mark. The word prolonged means delayed, no longer delayed. For in your days, meaning the end time, in your days, O rebellious house, will I say the word and will perform it. So Yah is saying now, no more of this vain visions that you put off in the future. Now I'm speaking the word through my prophets, and it's going to be fulfilled. I'm going to make it happen, is what Yah is saying. I am going to make it happen. It says, and no more, it shall be no more prolonged, for in your days of rebellious house will I say the word and will perform it, says Yehovah Elohim. Verse 26, again, the word of Yehovah came to me. Look how many times he says that to Ezekiel. The word of Yehovah came to me, saying, Son of man, verse 27, behold, they of the house of Israel are saying, the vision that he sees, you see, that Ezekiel sees, is for many days to come. Oh, this is many days down the road to come. And he prophesies of the times that are, oh, they're far off. This generation will not see it. So it's repeated here in verse 26 and 27. And are far off. Therefore, verse 28, therefore say to them, thus says Yehovah Elohim, there shall none of my words, he repeats it, be prolonged anymore. Anymore. But the word which I have spoken shall be done, says Yehovah Elohim. So Yah himself keeps repeating. And when Yah keeps repeating, it's significant that the people, because of the rebellion and because of their stubbornness of heart, their hardness of heart, refuse. They refuse to hear it. It's people's beliefs, I put in my notes, outside of what Yah says, that his visions are for many days and far off. But Yah responds that his words will no longer be prolonged. And it's number 4900. So it is a different number, by the way, in the Hebrew, the word prolonged, that we previously defined as 748, Iraq. So we see the English word prolong, it's a different Hebrew word. And it's 4900, it's mashak. Mashak is spelled M-A-S-H-A-K. M-A-S-H-A-K, 4900. It means to drag on. No more dragging on, or drawing out over a period of time. Drawing out over a period of time or a delay. So Yah says, no, that's not happening anymore. No more delay. His words that are spoken shall be done. This is the last verse in chapter 12. The Hebrew word, A-S-A-H, 6213, Asa, A-S-A-H. So shall be done means to accomplish. He's going to accomplish it. To complete. See that? He's going to complete it. Performed. He's going to perform it. And to execute. He's going to make it happen. So all of this is being said in this prophecy is because of the hardness of the heart. And because we live in a generation that people refuse to believe. And they want to live their life, maintain their life, and think that's their hope and their answer, that everything's going to work out eventually. And I hear that all the time. Oh, it's going to, no, things will get better. Things will improve. So now let's continue Ezekiel 13. Ezekiel 13. Look at what it starts with. Verse 1. And the word of Yehovah came to me saying, must have chapter 12, at least 5 or 6 times. So here it is again. The word of Yehovah, though, came to me saying, Son of man, And why does he have to say it? Because people are so stubborn and rebellious that when the word is given through a human being, they refuse to accept it. Oh, he's just a man, or she just a woman, or it's this, that, and the other thing. You know, that they must be on something. They must be smoking weed or something. They must be having pipe dreams. They're not seeing any vision. You know, it's not going to happen. Look what we have right now. We got prosperity. We got good jobs. You know, we got this and we got that. I'm still able to function in my life. You know, but I'm not listening to that fool. You know, they mock, they condemn, and they disrespect Yah's leadership or Yah's prophets. That's what they do. So, Son of Man, verse 2. Let's continue now. Chapter 13, as we read verse 1, verse 2. Son of Man, prophesy against. Look what he introduces. Before is how they believe. Now Yah is going to attack the false prophets, the false leaders out there, the false teachers that are liars. Son of Man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say you to them that prophesy out of their own hearts. Look what the Most High is revealing. Out of their own hearts, their own imagination. Hear you the word of Yahweh. So now I'm looking at this. He says to speak. He told Ezekiel to speak, right? As we're reading these verses. The word speak in the Hebrew, the word that is prophesied, the word, I should say prophesied, which means to speak, is number 5012 in the Hebrew, the word prophesied. 5012, the Hebrew word is nabah, N-A-B-A, N-A-B-A, in other words, nabah, N-A-B-A. It means by inspiration, which has to come from the Most High, basically, or a prediction, or to predict. So he says against the prophets, though. So the word prophets, though, is another Hebrew word, is 5030. Well, now we say to the prophets. 5030 is Nabi. Nabi is N-A-B-I-Y. N-A-B-I-Y. 5030, prophets. It means a spokesman, in the Hebrew, a spokesman who stands in the council of Yah. All right? A spokesman who stands in the council of Yah to receive their messages. To receive the messages. Okay? A spokesman. So, that's how it's defined. Or, it continues with the definition, or one who was raised up, it says, by Yah. Oh, see the difference? Raised up, not self-appointed, raised up by Yah to proclaim what Yah is giving to him to say. What Yah is giving to him to say. And in the Hebrew, it also defines it this way. And that prophet could not contradict the Torah. Isn't that interesting? So that's how you know the difference. When people speak and they say they have a prophecy, if they're not going by what's in the Torah, or it's not supported by the Torah, their message is false. It's out of their own hearts. It will always be supported by, that's why it's defined this way in the Hebrew, it will always be supported in the Torah. Never contradict the Torah instructions. So that's how you know the difference. If you want to know the difference between a true prophet and a false one, a true teacher and a false one. That's why it's defined this way. So let me repeat the whole thing again. I want you all to get this, how it's defined. A Nabi is a spokesperson, a man who stood in the council of Yah to receive their messages, or one who was raised up by Yah to proclaim what Yah gives him to say. To proclaim what Yah gives him to say. And that prophet could not, I'm emphasizing this, could not contradict what's written in the Torah. Could not. That's the difference. Or, this it continues because there's a lot of meanings in this. Sometimes when you look up in the concordance, you'll see not just this much, you'll see like this much. Or, so I'm writing down as it pertains to this teaching. Or speak from his own mind or heart. Or to speak from his, that's a false prophet, to speak from his own mind or heart. To do so, that is to speak from one's own mind and heart. In the Hebrew says to do so was to be a false prophet. That's how a false prophet is defined, when a person is speaking from their own mind and heart and not from what Yah has revealed through the scriptures. So it gives a reference of, hold your place, Yirmiyahu 14, gives an example, reference, Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu 14. Let's look at these verses here. Very important that we look at all this, understand, think. So to reference Jeremiah 14 and look at verse 14. Jeremiah 14:14. There it says, then Yehovah said to me, here we go again. Just like Ezekiel, Jeremiah is saying the same thing. He spoke to me, saying, the prophets prophesy lies in my name. Isn't that something? That's what we're seeing. That's what we're witnessing in these last days. Okay? The prophets prophesy lies. It's the same Hebrew words now. In my name, though. I sent them not. Look what he says. Neither have I commanded them, neither spoken to them. They prophesied to you a false vision. Look at what he's saying here. A false vision and divination, which we already defined as pagan, beliefs, etc., words, and divination, and a thing of naught or nothing. It means nothing, Yah says. And the deceit of their heart, though. It's of their heart they're speaking out of. So that's Jeremiah 14:14 as a reference. Also Jeremiah 23. Jeremiah 23. Look at this. Verse 16 says this. 23:16. We're defining right now. We're reading. Look at this. Thus says Yehovah of hosts, hearken not to the words of the prophets that prophesy to you, they make you vain. Oh, the Christian churches love to do that. Oh yeah, you're a special people. Oh yes, he says, and Yah has prospered you. He's giving you, good jobs, and you got wonderful cars, and no longer have to ride bikes like they do in Europe and in China or whatever. Cars, no fancy cars, beautiful homes, and it says that's Yah's purpose and love. Make people feel good. Make people feel good. They make you vain, is what is written here. They speak a vision of their own heart. In fact, I was reading something also from a news ministry. And they were saying how now, in fact, it was Mike Adams. You heard about him before. And he said, now you see in the churches, they get very little of the word. And everything else is just a whole lot of talk. In the churches right now, and it's very shortened, like say messages. And if they're due there 2 or 3 hours, maybe a half an hour, 20 minutes or a half an hour of a message. And the rest of the time is, we got to praise the Lord, and they're doing their dancing and they're doing their music and they're singing their songs and all of that. They make it an entertainment. That's what they're doing in many of these churches. So they make you vain. They speak, I'm still reading from verse 6, they speak a vision of their own heart and not out of the mouth of Jehovah. That's what he's proclaiming through Jeremiah 23:16. They make you vain, he says. In the Hebrew, it's number 1891. They make you vain. Hebrew, 1891. The Hebrew word is habal. Habal, H-A-B-A-L. Habal, H-A-B-A-L, 1891. The word vain. It literally means lead you astray. They make you vain, and they're doing all this action, they're leading you astray. Because it has nothing to do with Yah, what they're proclaiming and what they're doing as a part of a religious service. You don't read that in the scripture. You don't read that even when they went into the synagogues. You know, that they have maybe a few minutes of reading the Torah, and the rest is just, let's play the harp. Let's play the string instruments. Not that you don't have to do that at some point. You know, you don't have to do it. God doesn't demand of it, but it is a modern practice that came out actually out of the Catholic Church. That's the history of that. That's the history of that. And some have proclaimed that and shown that how it got started. Because in the synagogues, they didn't have that. All right? Came out of the Catholic Church. Another false ministry. Obviously, you all know that. Continue. And let me see. They make you, I read that. Also, verse 26 of this chapter. So we just read verse 16. Now verse 26. How long shall this be? The Most High is asking. How long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yes, they are prophets of deceit of their own heart. Prophets of deceit. They prophesy, it says lies. The word lies in the Hebrew. Verse 26 now we're looking at is 8267. Lies. And it's shakur. Shakur in the Hebrew is S-H-E-Q-E-R. S-H-E-Q-E-R 8267. And it means, when it says they prophesy lies, untruth. Untruth. You understand? Falsehoods. You're hearing this? Falsehood. A way of life that goes contrary to the Torah. Wow. Listen to this. The word lies, shakur. It's untruth, falsehood, a way of life that goes contrary to the Torah. So that in verse 30 now, let's look at verse 30 in this chapter. Therefore, behold, I am against. Look what the Most High is saying. Says Yehovah, I am against the prophets, says Yehovah, that steal my words. Look what he says. Steal my words, every one from his neighbor. So steal my words. The word steal in the Hebrew, 1589. 1589 is ganab, G-A-N-A-B. G-A-N-A-B. Ganab, 1589. The word steal that we're defining right now, it means to thieve. Like we say thief, to thieve. And it goes on to say, by deceiving the heart, to thieve by deceiving the heart. And then when it says here in this verse that we were just reading, in verse 30, my words, everyone from his neighbor. The word neighbor in the Hebrew is 7453. The word neighbor now we're studying. 7453 is Rea. Rea is R-E-A. R-E-A. 7453. Its root is Ra'ah 7462. So we have 7453, and then the root is 7462. Ra'ah, R-A apostrophe A-H. We studied that not too long ago. It's defined in the context as an associate, as a friend, neighbor. Now, what's defining neighbor? An associate as a friend. Oh, yes, this was very interesting. Okay. It says, associate as a friend or a flock. So not only you're deceiving your neighbor, you're deceiving a flock. It says in the Hebrew. Okay, so let's go back to 13. We covered those verses in Jeremiah, but now we're going back to chapter 13, and we're looking at verse 2 again. 13:2. Let's repeat it. Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say you to them that prophesy out of their own hearts. So this term, out of their own hearts, the word hearts, now we're defining 3820. Hearts, 3820. The Hebrew word is leb, L-E-B. Out of their own hearts is defined as your feelings, your will, and your intellect. Isn't that interesting? So this word hearts in the Hebrew, your feelings, it's out of your will and out of your intellect. Oh, how much humanity loves to trust in this and trust in this when they shouldn't, you see, can easily be misled. Then verse 3, then Yah says, thus says Yehovah Elohim, woe to the foolish prophets. Look what he's saying here. That follow their own spirit. See how much he's repeating? They follow their own spirit and have seen nothing. You have seen nothing. You are ignorant. So then Yah says, woe. That word woe in the Hebrew is very interesting. 1945. It's the Hebrew word howy, H-O-W-Y. H-O-W-Y. Its roots are 1930 and 1929. So when you see the word oh, no, I says woe, but you also see the word oh with an explanation point. That is emphasized that way. O-H-O, 1930 and 1920. It means to expressing grief. The word woe now, we're still defining. It's expressing grief. And also another root from that is 188, O-E, O-W-Y this time, 188, O-W-Y. So the other one was H-O-W-Y, but now this O-E, O-W-Y. It means a sense of crying out. We're talking about expressing grief now, a sense of crying out or a lamentation. You heard that word often in scripture, lamentation, to lament. So literally 1945, this word woe, it means in prophetic announcements of judgment. I repeat, it's 1945, the extended meeting. In prophetic announcements of judgment or threats. Oh yeah, Yah has a right to threaten, and he does, as warnings. or threats. So I asked the question, so when he says in verse 3, woe to the foolish prophets, I asked the question, well, woe to who? Think about that. Woe to who? It says to the prophets who are, I got to turn the page. That's weird. To the prophets, as we're in verse 3 that we're defining, to the foolish, right? Woe to the foolish prophets. Foolish is 5036 in the Hebrew. Foolish. 5036. This is verse 3 of Ezekiel 13. Foolish, we're defining it. It's Nabal. Nabal or Nabal. Nabal. The same spelling that we see in the English. And it gives a reference. I'll share it with you in a moment as I define this, though. Because 5036, Nabal, it means stupid. So when it says foolish, say this: woe to the prophet, to the foolish prophets, stupid prophets. They're stupid, in other words. Wicked is defined, Nabal, Nabal. Wicked. Its root is from 5034, Nabel, Nabel, spelled a little bit different. So 5036, its root is 5034, Nabel, Nabel. It means to fall away. Look at that. Think. Foolish. It means to fall away. Arrogant. Dense morally. You're dense in your mind. Morally, though. So dense morally, and then it says intellectually. See that? You know, your intellect, don't trust in the intellect. God warns about that over and over again. And spiritually. So let me define this: arrogant, dense morally, intellectually, and spiritually, as a fool. It says in the Hebrew, as a fool. It gives this reference. You're going to know this. Hold your place in Ezekiel 13. Let's turn to 1 Samuel 25. And you can read this whole account sometime. I'm starting in verse 25. And you can read the whole chapter and see how it happened with Nabal to be a fool. But 1 Samuel 25. Notice verse 25. And so his wife Abigail, you know the story. Nabal's wife Abigail was speaking to David, and she says to King David, verse 25. Let not my Lord or master, I pray you, regard this man, she's speaking about her husband, of Belial, meaning of Satan. Nabal, there's that word, Nabal. And that's the meaning, and that's the 5036, Nabal, spelled the same way. For his name is, so is he. This is the wife, speaking of, because see, David, if you read the story behind that, he was protecting Nabal's property, wouldn't let any of the armies around attack his property or whatever, while David was in the area. So he was protecting all his prosperity, all his benefits, whatever. But so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. Foolishness. But I, your handmaid, saw not the young men of my master whom you did send. She didn't see. Nabal was the one that was rejecting David's men because they were in need of produce. They were in need of some kind of food, because David had to flee with his men from Saul. Saul was seeking to take David's life. All right, and David had to flee. So they're hiding out. And while they were hiding out, they were protecting Nabal's land. So let's continue. I'm still reading from this chapter here. Let's see how many. Okay, skipping ahead to verse 36 now. So Abigail, verse 36, came to Nabal, that's her husband, and behold, he held a feast in his house, okay, like the feast of a king. He was prosperous, prospered. And Nabal's heart was merry or glad within him, for he was very drunken. It says, very drunken. Wherefore, she told him nothing. She told him nothing about David's army in the need of food and produce. Okay? Less or more until the morning light. Less or more until the morning light. Because he was very drunken. Now, verse 37. And it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, he was recovering from his hangover, as we would say today. Yeah, he was hanging, all right. Yeah, he's about to be hanged, hangover. And his wife had told him these things. Now she reveals that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. He was like frozen in his thinking. And it came to pass, verse 38, about 10 days, that Jehovah, look at the penalty, smote Nabal, that he died. Jehovah did that. That was his judgment because of what he did in disrespecting David and the men of Israel. That he was being protected, and yet you would not feed those that were protecting you, that in need of food, and he refused. So if you read the whole account, you go back, you see what happened. So let me continue. It says in verse 39, and when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be Jehovah that has pleaded the cause of my reproach. You see, disrespect from the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from evil. Because David went to kill him. David was going to die, but Yah did the judgment. Yah killed him. Jehovah has returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. But now she was available for marriage at the death of her husband. And she had saved he and his men from doing a wicked thing, number one, but also they were in need of food. They had run out of food, you see. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they spoke to her, saying, David sent us to you to take you to him to wife. He already had wives. This was just another one, an additional one. To take to him to wife. And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth and said, behold, thine handmaid, a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my master. Look at the humility in this woman. And Abigail hasted and rose. She rode upon an ass with 5 damsels of hers. She had handmaids, in other words, that went after her, that served her. And she went after the messengers of David, and she became his wife. So look at that. That example, that's what I'm pointing out. The example of Abigail having to do with a man as her husband that was a fool. That was a fool. Who by their own mind, so we're back to Ezekiel, back to Ezekiel 13, verse 3, when it says, woe to the foolish prophets that follow their own spirit and have seen nothing. They have a mindset that says nothing in what they follow, though. The word follow their own spirit. Follow is 1980, is halak, H-A-L-A-K, halak, 1980. That they follow. In other words, in the Hebrew, it means behave without any sense of direction. That's what the word follow means now. They follow their own spirit. So it means to behave without any sense of direction or living responsibly before Yah, or living responsibly before Yah. So let's continue now to verse 4. Verse 4 says this: O Israel, your prophets are like the foxes in the desert. The desert is a wasteland, empty, in other words. Their life, they are empty, in other words. Verse 5, you have not gone up into the gaps, neither made up the hedge for the house of Israel to stand in the battle in the day of Yahuwah. You have not done what you should have done. And hold on. So when you see this term here, Yah explains that Israel's prophets are, as their teachers, are leading them to judgment. That's what's happening. You need to understand this. Yah's explained that Israel's prophets, as their teachers, are leading them to judgments from Yah due to their wicked ways. The prophets are described here as having wicked ways, forced to live in ruins, forced to live in ruins, just like we are seeing in America now. The judgments on America right now, human beings, masses of families and people are being forced to live in ruins. It wasn't that way before, but it's happening now, right before our eyes, right before our eyes. And then verse 5, you have not gone up. The word gone up in the Hebrew is number 5927. You have not gone up. 5927, we've studied this in times past. The Hebrew word is Allah. Allah, A-L-A-H. Like the Muslims worship Allah. All right, same Hebrew word. It means to take away. You have not gone up, but you have to take away. And then it says the gaps. The gaps in Hebrew is 6556 gaps. G-A-P-S, we see in the English, but it's 6556. And the Hebrew word is peres, P-E-R-E-S, P-E-R-E-S, 6556 for gaps. It means to tear, like T-E-A-R, rupture, breaches in the walls of Israel. I repeat, to tear, rupture, or breaches in the walls of Israel that brings failures. This is all in the Hebrew. That brings failures of Yah's people. Failures of Yah's people to what? Follow him, though. To follow Yah. It is due to the false prophets misleading them. I repeat. So that brings failures of Yah's people to follow him due to those false prophets misleading them, meaning Israel. So now verse 6, look at the context. They have seen vanity. There it is again. And it says 7723, Shav, S-H-A-V. They see vanity. It's Shav, 7723. It means uselessness. So they see vanity or uselessness as deceptive, deceit, and falsity. I repeat, when they're doing this and they're seeing this type of vanity, 7723 Shav, it's uselessness as deceptive, deceit, and falsity. And then it says in the same verse, and lying divination. Well, lying is 3577. Lying, a different Hebrew word, 3577, lying. And the Hebrew word is kazab, K-A-Z-A-B. Kazab, K-A-Z-A-B, 3577, lying. It means a deception. Look how often that we see some of these Hebrew words that are even different Hebrew words, but it still had the same message about lying or telling falsehoods or falsity or deceptions or deceit, deceiving. And I can think right now, Revelation 12:9. My mic? Okay. Anyone hear me? No? All right. Here we go again. Yep, there's no. So it's in the system. Hold on for a moment. Some technical difficulty right now. Got to check our system. All right. All right. I'm reconnected. Thank you for that. All these wonderful helpers I have in this ministry here. Appreciate them very much. So we're defining this word, kazab, 3577, with the term lying, a deception, falsehood means. And then it says in the Hebrew, believe it or not, to make a covenant with death. Isn't that interesting? To make, when you follow the wrong spirit or you're following the wrong teachings, you are actually in agreement with those false teachings. You are engaged in a covenant with death. That's what it means in the Hebrew, kazab, a covenant with death. Then it says, because it says lying, divination is 7081. And we just defined earlier in the previous chapter, 7081, Keseth, Q-E-C-E-T-H, Q-E, Keseth, Q-E-C-E-T-H. And then it says seeking divination. This word divination, we're defining now, seeking gods of the nations. So think about that. That use, this is the rest of it, that use magic and witchcraft. Because they go to seances, they go to their, hidden meetings, and they practice certain things to delve into the spirit world, the spirit realm of spirits. That Yah says, so let's continue. Lying, it says divination. As far as the gap, verse 6, lying, divination, saying, Yehovah, they're saying this now. The Yehovah says, and then it says, and Yehovah has not sent them. And they have made to hope, though, through their lying deceptions, you see, to hope that they would confirm the word. Not Yah, they. Look at the difference. They would confirm the word. I got to see what my pastor had to say. We have spoken. Some of us have had these experiences. You go out and you meet people and you speak to them what's in the scripture. And you show them sometime what's in the scripture, and they say they got to check with their pastor. They got to check with their pastor. All right? So Yah says, continuing in the verse 6, they have made their hope that they would confirm the word. That's these false ministers, false pastors, false prophets. That Yah says he has not sent them, who promote a false hope, though. And they rely on them to confirm their words. Now, verse 7, have you not seen a vain vision, Yah says? And have you not spoken a lying, he's repeating it, reminding them, a lying divination? Whereas you say, Yehovah says, albeit I have not spoken. He keeps repeating that. So Yah repeats that what they see is out of their own imagination, what they see. and their own thoughts that he has not spoken. It is not of or from Yah. It's not of or from Yah. Verse 8, therefore thus says Yahweh Elohim, because you have spoken vanity. Says it again. You have spoken vanity. You have seen lies. Therefore, behold, I am against you, says Yahweh Elohim. The word against is number 413 in the Hebrew. Against. It's spelled L, just like Yah is the L, Elohim, L, but it's pronounced different. It's a different number. It's spelled Ali, A-L-E, A-L-E. I wrote it in parentheses, Ali, A-L-E is the way it's pronounced. Not L, but you'd say L. Speaking of our creators, it's Ali, A-L-E. In fact, that almost looks like bear, you know, ale. When they say bear, it's ale.
Yeah.
It's spelled the same way, A-L-E. Isn't that something? So is that ale against you? Think about that. Those that love to consume a lot of beer. And I can never stand that stuff personally. It doesn't work with my taste buds. I tasted it one time and really spit it out on the ground. Indicating he's against their direction. Indicating direction. In other words, in what they speak and see. It's what they speak and see. Now, verse 9 says this, and mine hand shall be upon the prophets that see the vanity. My hand. Hand designates authority of the Most High. And that divine lies. Look how often this is being mentioned. In other words, that divine lies. And it says, I have here my notes, Yah will work to oppose those prophets. He works to oppose them, to remove. Now, look at the rest of this. Pay attention to this, verse 9. That divine lies, they shall not be in the assembly of my people. The prophets that are false, look what Yah is judging. They shall not be in the assembly of my people, neither shall they be. Oh, I've got to share this. But Yah was showing me about this. He works to oppose those prophets. He removes them from the assemblies, and they shall not be included. Look at the rest of this. Neither shall they be written in the writing of the house of Israel. In other words, as a member or as a belonging in the house of Israel, neither shall they enter into the land of Israel. So now when it says, neither shall they be written, and that is to be included as part of Israel no longer, God's going to remove them. The word written now, we've got to define this. Written, 3789 and 3791. But 3789 and 3791. 3789 is katab. Katab is K-A-T-H-A-B. Katab, K-A-T-H-A-B. This word means, not written, means inscribed, recorded. Think about those terms. For a memorial in a book. Like we see in Malachi 3, in the end of the chapter, about being written in the book as a memorial. They shall not be written in the book. And then it gives a reference in the concordance as Exodus 17:14. So hold your place in Ezekiel 13. Let's turn Shemot to Shemot or Exodus 17 and verse 14. Very important that we follow through on this. This is the reference. 17:14. Look what it says here. How this is to support when it says they shall not be written in the book. Reference is Exodus 17:14. Here's what we read. And Yahweh says to Moshe, write this, a memorial in a book. So all the experiences that Moshe was having with his Yah's people, all the time period that he was with them in Egypt, he actually was writing it. Yah had already previously told him, and then he's writing the experiences, what was going on with the plagues, how Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and that's why we're reading it in Exodus. We're reading what he was experiencing with his people against Pharaoh and against the Egyptians, and he was to record it. So that's why it says here, Yahweh says to Moshe, write this as a memorial in a book, rehearse it in the ears of your Joshua or Yehoshua, okay, because Joshua was to replace him in the future, right? For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Amalek was the ones, the people that as they were leaving, they hid and would pick off people, the lame or the blind or the poor or whatever at the end of the group as they were leaving Egypt. And they would attack and kill them. Amalek. And when Yah saw that, Yah says, you write this. They are going to be excluded from even being written in the book at all. Those people that did that from under heaven. So that's 17. But when I saw that, I immediately thought about two verses that you all are familiar with. And turn with me. Now you can leave Exodus, hold your place in Exodus, Ezekiel 13, but turn with me to Revelation. You're going to know this anyway. Revelation 21. Oh, you got to see this. Yah gave that to me as I was reading not to be written for Amalek. You see, they're excluded out of the book. Revelation 21. Look at these verses. You know them. We've covered them numerous times in the past. But look at verse 27. Revelation. And verse 27. The end of the chapter of chapter 21 says this, and there shall in no wise enter into it, the city. Look at this. Anything that defiles, neither whatsoever works abomination, or that makes a lie. See that? But they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. Book of life, written. That's us, and that's the people before us that have already made it into the city. The Lamb's book of life. Now, chapter 22. Give me that chapter 2. Look at verse 19. And it says here. Oh, verse 18 for context. I'll read this. For I testify to every man, to every human being, that hears the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man or one shall add to these things, Elohim shall add to him the plagues that are written in this book. Now, verse 19. If any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, Elohim shall take away his part out of the book of life and out of the holy city. See that? Out of the holy city. Because that reference is also a part of when it says they neither shall enter into Yah's land. See, not only as a memorial, they shall not enter into Yah's land. Well, it says here in verse 19, out of the city, oh, the set apart city, the things which are written in this book. So that's a judgment from the Most High. If people go against what his word says and they lie and they deceive and they mislead people into falsehoods and against the Torah, well, they are in a dangerous position in the presence of the Most High. He will destroy them. That's what people have to understand. God is the creator of life, and he will also judge to put to death. That's what it means. So back to Ezekiel. Hold your place, I should say. Hold your place. I almost forgot. Hold your place in Revelation 22. And we're just reading. Go back to Ezekiel 13. As we were reading verse 9, when it was saying here, what we were reading, in the middle, neither shall they be written in the writing of the house of Israel. Where Israel will be in the house, neither shall they enter into the land of Israel. Look at that statement. So I said to hold your place in Revelation 22. Go back there. Now look at verse 14. This is what Yah gave me as I was studying this. Verse 14 and 15. Blessed are they that do his commandments. Must be done, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. That's exciting. That's wonderful. Into the city, verse 15. For outside, without means outside, are dogs. That's the first thing is mentioned. No barking, you see. No roof. You see, dogs or animals will be able to speak again. They'll have their tongue healed, so to speak, like they were in the beginning. But outside are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whosoever loves and makes a lie. Outside. That's the judgment of the Most High. All right? Not mine. It's not, I have no power and authority as far as that part is concerned. Not any human being. It's the creators, the Father and the Son will make that judgment. All right? That's why it's written in the scripture the way it is. Now back to Ezekiel 13, as we are there still. Ezekiel 13. So look at what it says in verse, and I asked the question, why? Why is this such a severe judgment? Ezekiel 13:10 says this, because they have seduced my people. The word seduce in the Hebrew is 2037. Seduce. Or is it 29? I think it's 2037 or 2937. But either way, it's ta'ah. T-A''AH. T-A''AH. I think it's 2937. But it means to lead astray. No, that's what it means in the Hebrew. Seduce means to lead astray, giving false information. Saying, continues with the meaning now, saying the opposite of the truth. Opposite, see that? And it also says this in the concordance, whitewashing something. Interesting, whitewashing something. What were they whitewashing? What was the untruth? Look at this verse 10. Seduce my people, how? Saying what? Peace. Look at this. And there was no peace. See that? They're saying peace. The false prophets. And there is no peace. So this word here, peace, is 7963 in the Hebrew. 7963, the word peace now. Shaliva. Shaliva is S-H-E-L-E-V-A-H. S-H-E-L-E-V-A-H. Shaliva, for the word peace, 7963. 7963 is referring, look at what it says here, the word peace to prosperity. Isn't that interesting? Or tranquility to national security and safety. Look at this term, this Hebrew. When I looked up this word shaliva, and I immediately thought of a certain verse that I'm going to have us all turn to in a moment. But it means prosperity, tranquility to national security and safety. I wrote in my notes, doesn't this sound familiar when we constantly hear from our leaders in our nation, whether governors, mayors, or doesn't matter what the leadership, we constantly hear that we have increases coming. You know, right now they're forecasting another stimulus check increases. Got people excited. It won't be as much as 600, but maybe the 400 level or whatever. Still not going to be enough. And that we have increases coming, better jobs. The numbers have gone down. With what Trump says. Oh, we have the greatest army in the world. No one can defeat us. We have the greatest army. Oh, The market is coming back. The stock market, this is getting better. The market is getting better. This is exciting. When he's giving his talk, the market is getting better, etc. All on and on and on it goes. But look, the meaning of this about the prosperity and as far as peace and security and safety, look what Yah showed me and reminded me right away, put it in my spirit. 1 Thessalonians 5, got to turn there. Hold your place in Ezekiel. Yah is amazing because he's fitting it together. And to make us think, to make us understand. Shaul, when he wrote this, there was no what we call New Testament scriptures. He could only go by what he knew in the prophecies in the Torah. Shaul. So look what he writes here, 1 Thessalonians 5. Look at these verses here, verse 1 through 3. Look at this. But of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write to you. You already know these things. And I say to all of us, you, this assembly, and you online, you already know these things of the times. You'll need to write to you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of Jehovah's soul comes as a thief in the night. They're not going to be looking for him, but he's coming as a thief in the night. Verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, exactly what we are reading and about peace in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, shaliva. When they shall say peace and safety, well, the word peace in the Greek now, 15:15, peace. I'm not giving the Greek words necessarily. I'm just giving the number, and I'm going to give you the meaning. When they say peace, it actually means prosperity. Prosperity. Harmonious relationships. When they say that, harmonious relationships between mankind. Oh, they're trying to bring the people together. Harmonious relationships. Rest. All for peace now. Rest. You're having rest. Quietness. Are you kidding me? Even this morning, I was trying to get some extra sleep, and I heard it outside my window. I said, oh, no. I went to bed very late this morning. I'm trying to get my last hour, and I hear all this foolish noise. This is the Sabbath, and they don't know that, though. They're blinded to that. They love to work on Saturday and keep their Sunday, So no peace, no tranquility. And then it says rest, and then it says here the meaning, quietness. There was no quietness in my neighborhood. You see, quietness. It also has the meaning order in the state, in the government. Order. Order? You kidding me? The sense of contentment. The sense of contentment. Order in the state. Most of you know how much I love track. And I watch now the events that they've had on TV as far as track goes. And I love the racing and all of that. But I've noticed something that I've never heard before. In any track meets, they got a series now preparing for the Olympics for next year. So they've had televised 4 different, Birmingham, England, and in Switzerland, and all over the place, in Norway, whatever. But here's what the sportscasters are saying. They've been using the word chaos. I've never seen that before. There have been people tripping other people. There was one guy disqualified because he got tripped and grabbed the shorts of another runner that's a leading runner and caused him to fall down. He got disqualified. They showed that, all right? And so the sportscasters say they've been noticing all this chaos. And then there was one that was running the 5,000 meter run, 5,000, which operates in having 13 laps or something like that. So there's one that's a leading runner that they expected to win, right? All of a sudden on the 12th lap, he takes off and starts sprinting. And he's sprinting against the challengers that are good runners behind him. And they're looking at him. He's out distancing all the other runners. And then when he gets the completion of the 12th lap, he's thinking it's the 13th lap. He puts his hands up to the audience, and claiming victory. Claiming victory. And then he sees all the runners running by. And then all of a sudden he tries to catch up and he couldn't catch up. and chaos. And they use that word again. Chaos. How is that happening? It's in the spirit realm. In the spirit realm. There's no peace. There's no harmony. There's no rest, quietness, or order. Now, here's the other word. Safety. When they say shall save, verse 3. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 3. Safety. That is number 803 in the Greek. 803. That means security. The other one meant prosperity when they say peace, but this one, safety, means security from peril, P-E-R-I-L, or danger. It means not liable to fall. Well, there's no falling, they're saying. I mean, we're not going to fall. America is not going to be destroyed. America this and that. Or firmness. So now they're saying that. Do you know Trump's campaign to become president, that he promised the American public that we are bring back prosperity again in a greater way to America. And then he said the other part was security of the borders, especially from Canada and not Canada, but Mexico. He mentioned both terms. And even then when he was running, I knew about this verse that I referred to as a prophecy of our last days in this country. All right. So now back to Ezekiel 11, this time. It says, say to them, which daub with untempered means unmixed mortar, that it shall fall, the wall, it shall fall. There shall be an overflowing shower. Overflow. The word fall, though, is 5307 in the Hebrew. It shall fall. Yah is saying it shall fall. The word fall in the Hebrew is 5307. And you know this word, nafal. Nafal, where we get the term Nephilim in Genesis 6. Fall. 5307 is spelled N-A-P-H-A-L. N-A-P-H-A-L. It means, fall means to cease, die, fall away, to be overtaken for a violent death. Think about that meaning, a violent death, especially in battle. Now, we've been